He was a very active member. Those of you who are in the WhatsApp group, I'm sure are familiar with the kind of forwards that he used to make. In all, he was a very rounded, kind of a maverick, a very colorful personality. In fact, the other day, my brother, who is also a very close friend of KP Ganapathy, was telling me, Sheri, I thought KP Ganapathy was immortal. You know why? Because we never associate death with Gandhi, because such was his joy of living, love for life. So we always thought that, he would be there. But life has its own ways. I'll just say a few words. All of you know, KP Ganapathy was educated in those days government college in Madikeri, then did his law in Bangalore, then did his journalism from Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Mumbai, worked for Free Press Journal and Indian Express. Then he had his own advertisement company in Pune with a partner, a lady partner, I don't remember her name, but she is a cousin of Madikeri, and then got married in 1976. Then moved to Mysuru and started Star of Mysore in 1978 and Mysore Mithra in 1980. And both of them turned out to be huge successes. And especially those who read Mysore Mithra will know the kind of love and affection KP Ganapathy enjoyed. Wherever, like yesterday at the small clock tower, the other day in Devaraja's Road, all huge cutouts. And he really touched the lives of Mysureans in every way. And what he had was this extraordinary human connect. And it was very difficult to, you could disagree with him, but basically a very affable, affectionate, loving man. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ Ajatashatru ಅಂತೀವಲ್ಲ ಆ ಥರ. So we are all gathered here to pay Shraddhanjali to Shri KP Ganapathy. We begin with the founder convener of Mysore Open Forum, Professor M. Umapathy. I request you, sir, to come and pay your homage. Sorry, serious lapse. Thanks for correcting. We need to observe a minute silence and pay for the dear departed soul.
ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ನಿಲ್ಸ್ಕೊತೀನಿ ಆ ಕಡೆ ತಗೋತೀನಿ ಬನ್ನಿ ಸರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹತ್ತರ
ಮೌನ ಆಚರಿಸಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮೌನ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ ಆದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರು
ಆಯ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು
ಸರ್ ಅದು ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೊದಲೇ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡಿ
ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡಿ ಹಿಂಗೆ ತಿರುಗಿ ಸರ್
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಡ ಫೋಟೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ
ಇದಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಇದೆ
ಹಾಂ ಫೋಟೋ ಇದಾಗುತ್ತಾ ಇದು ತೆಗಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಮಾತಿನ ಮಲ್ಲ ಗಣಪತಿಗೆ KBGಗೆ ಮೌನ ಆಚರಿಸೋ ಸಂದರ್ಭ. The most successful journalist entrepreneur of Mysore I have seen, KBG. Professor Belliappa, who knew KBG like the back of his hand, the closest I think amongst us to KBG.
And not the closest, there are many. One of the closest.
And we sometimes don't know the back of our hand.
Well, That's what my limited knowledge. Rightly, he's Belliappa presiding over this sad function. But anyway, I begin with Mysore journalism in 1950s and 60s. In my teenage, the Mysureans Siddhant Patrike was Rajiv Patrike, Aruna Patrike, Mysore Patrike, each other. I started by persons with some freedom fight background. Ambede Tataya, Agaram Rangaya, they were the main journalists of the period. 30. But still, Samachar was the only English piece. And then, but most of them were one-sheeters, almost without advertisements, eveningers, mostly summarizing the state and national morning daily newspapers with some local touch, occasional, with no identity or personality of their own. Then, on the horizon, the star of Mysore was born, rather it bursted in 1978. Dear KBG brought in a new vision, a new dream, founded a two-sheeter English diary, first and then the morning Kannada daily, Mysore Mithra. He never looked back. He worked for 46 years, built and left a journalistic legend and the most successful journalistic enterprise Mysore had seen till now. The secret were many. The secrets were many for this. First, he gave a personality to his paper. Till then, no editor was attaching his personality to it. So, he wrote personal pieces like Abracadabra, Shumantar. Second, he gave prominence to local happenings and local events and local news. Third was the guiding care he gave to needs of Mysore citizens. List of theatres and cinemas, movies of the day, timetable, railway timetable for people to move around. So this kind of helpful pieces. Fourth, he brought in the Masala national news and news about Masala godmen like Acharya Rajneesh of Pune, and as well as substantial spiritual saint like Maharshi Yogi of transcendental meditation. Fifth, editorials, columns, crosswords, health tips, humor corners, letters to the editor, all embellished the star. Result, Mysureans flocked to Star of Mysore and embraced it. Star was a thundering success. Late Professor Sedian used to say, my evening is not complete without reading Star of Mysore. Mysureans agreed. The same thing happened to Mysore Mithra in course of time, especially in rural areas and particularly in Kodagu. The man KBG behind all this was a real giant, a mountain of good journalism. I knew him, I'm talking of my contact with him only to say how he, his hard work and other things brought out the success. I knew him from 1979 on. He lived behind the milk booth in Kamakshi Hospital Road, just a furlong away from my house. He married our department student Devamma Rally, Our children went to the same school, St. Joseph's. I have met him at his homes and office. The latest I met him was on 12th June at our luncheon meeting, which Ravi Joshi, our present convener, he usually initiates monthly luncheon meeting at Sports Club. We had a fine discussion, frank discussion. I was supposed to lead that and I did it on Indian Constitution and perspectives of writers like Sai Deepak on the Indian Constitution and Hindutva. So we had such a frank discussion on 12th June. He was vibrant as usual, and that was the last time when I could meet him personally. He was made of a spine which was of steel for diligence. He had friendly and an open heart for people. His brain power was awesome. The stars stood and grew on the shoulders of this great man. It has taken deep roots. His equally able and trained son Vikram Muttana and the strong journalistic team left behind KBG will keep the papers going. We happened to go to his office for some discussion, a few of us, and he showed all the parts of his office and the team. He has built a good team of others who were editing the journal, reporting and all that. So I am happy about that. That is the strength. It will keep going. KBG is gone. Long live the Star and Mithra. Finally, Ravi Joshi, in one of his forwards in WhatsApp, he said, "What an unfortunate thing. This is a third condolence meeting MOF is holding. Natraj, Asadi, and now KBG. Well, I would like to tell death, don't be proud. We are wiser than you. We have invented weapons of mass destruction and we are inching to kill all life on earth. Then what will you do? Don't be proud. We are stronger than you. Thank you very much."
Thank you, sir. The current convener of Mysore Open Forum is Mr. Ravi Joshi. At the moment he is abroad. He wrote a letter to the Star of Mysore. They didn't publish it because I think it was too personal. So I wrote to him and said, please send your letter to me. I will read it at the conference meeting. I am reading Ravi Joshi's letter. Dear Ganapathy Avare, no, you are not supposed to go like this. I knew you were in the hospital and I told you to get well soon and come back home. I said on my way back from Seattle, I will stop at Tokyo airport and pick up a new malt whiskey called Hakashu, Peace and Harmony, and we will have it in my house as soon as I get back, in the last week of July. And you had expressed your joyous consent by thumbs up, a sign emoji in your WhatsApp message. I was looking forward to having a drink with all our old friends at home. In fact, on 12th June at our last monthly lunch meeting at the sports club, you had told me, Ravi, send me some articles from America. And I said, okay, I'll write a series called Letters from America. And I wrote one long piece the day after President Trump ordered the bombing of Iran and sent it to you, to your very able assistant, Meera Paya. When I did not see it in print after 3 or 4 days, I asked Meera as to what happened. That is when I learned you were hospitalized. Soon other friends told me you were very unwell and were looking very weak and sickly. I knew something was seriously wrong this time. You were losing your job, your joy of living, and your own elan vital. Like the Ganapathy I always knew with a twinkle in his eye and a wicked sense of humor. I had asked you once as to what is the secret of your health, and you had said good whiskey and pandikari, pork curry, both staple diets of any self-respecting Kurgi. Your obvious good health and sturdy walk belied your age, and how eagerly you participated in every major event in Mysore. There was no event in Mysore that your paper did not carry, and hardly any important event without you. I look forward to your regular column, Abracadabra, and read it with keen interest because you had something quirky to say on any and every subject under the sun. We both differed sharply in our political views, but respected each other deeply, and that's how our friendship sustained. Though I knew about you and the Star of Mysore almost from the time it started, because of my brother who happened to be your lawyer. I came to know you directly only after I returned to Mysore after 40 years of being away in Delhi and abroad. We took quite some time in getting to know each other because in the first meeting you had walked out of a book discussion that I was hosting with Jairam Ramesh at the launch of the book on V.K. Krishna Menon. And you wrote a sharp rejoinder to Jairam Ramesh, but had kind and appreciative words to the moderator, to me. And then I knew your perceptive and nuanced understanding and appreciation of people and ideas. Soon I realized that you are one of the most well-read persons in the city. With an enviable experience as a journalist who started his career in the Indian Express, a brief stint with the Economic and Political Weekly and the Times of India, and your brief sojourn in Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's ashram in Pune, before coming to Mysuru and starting the Star of Mysore, which grew into India's most successful evening newspaper in English. And what an institution you have built, truly remarkable in its sheer perseverance and against all odds and competition in the city that had scores of newspapers at one time. I'm sure there are many competent historians of Mysore who know your story as a journalist and the struggles you faced in building up this institution. Unfortunately, I have not stayed long enough in the city to recount all that. Plus your contributions to the various other institutions in the city such as Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Ramakrishna Mission and Swami Vivekananda School. Not to forget your direct involvement with the Sports Club and the first Rotary Club of Mysore, founded in 1972, and your quiet support to many NGOs and foundations in and around the city. You are a pillar of strength to so many of them, and they were proud to have you on their board. Your contribution to the Koda Samaj deserves a separate chapter, which should only be written by your Koda friends. I shall not venture into that, but suffice it to say that you were kind enough to take me to your coffee estates. We visited 2 out of your 3 estates, and then came to our modest coffee estate for an afternoon of beer and lunch with Ashwini Ranjan, the one who brought us close in the first place. The controversial, prickly, bold, and defiant editor of Star of Mysore is no more. But the institution he built up survives, and I hope will continue to grow in the hands of his very competent and able son, Vikram Muthana, and the watchful supervision of his wife, Rali Ganapathy. Many do not know what a quiet pillar of strength and forbearance is Rali Ganapathy. He would not have achieved half the success but for our support. May the family have the strength to bear this loss and continue the great work started by the real Star of Mysore. Rest in peace, my friend. We'll miss you. Major Madikeri was to participate this morning in this morning's Shraddhanjali, but he is down with cold and mild fever, and of course, being very health conscious, he said, Belliappa, I should not come to the meeting. So I said, you please send your article, or he said, first he said bullet points, but then he said, I'll send you a written speech, which I will read. Sorry, I have some problems with the mobile.
Belliappa, can I suggest one thing? Here, can you alternate? Let someone speak, then you can read something.
Sorry, finish. No, I'm sorry, you don't like my voice, but
No, I like your voice.
No, we'll finish it, we'll finish. So then we come to the real, sorry. No, he assumed that Mrs. Ganapathy Vikram will all be here, but we never, custom. No, because he has addressed it like that, but in our community, until the Mada or the 11-day ceremony is over, you cannot go out of the house. So I read as he has written, Professor Vidyappa in the chair, Mrs. Rani Ganapathy, Mr. Vikram Muttanna, dear friends of Mysore Open Forum. It's an honor and privilege to speak at the memorial function for Mr. KB Ganapathy. There are many friends here who all want to share their thoughts about Mr. Ganapathy, so I will be brief. Kalyachanda Bopaya Ganapathy was affectionately referred to as KBG by many people. I had heard of KBG many years ago when I visited my cousin Mrs. Sheetal Rao in Pune. She mentioned that her business partner is in the advertisement firm that she was running was a Kodwa gentleman named Mr. Ganapathy. KBG was almost exactly 2 years older than me, so in deference to his seniority, I always addressed him as Mr. Ganapathy. My first letter to the editor of Star of Mysore was on the subject of the RMP, the so-called bomb factory, and KBG published it with the title Uranium in Our Coffee. I was then recently retired from military service, and it was KBG's Star of Mysore which connected me with the leaders of Mysure's celebrated evening. KBG's Star of Mysore and Mysuru Mithra were the platforms that connected people who are otherwise not known to each other. I think that connecting people is a great public service that KBG rendered for the people of our city of Mysore. I met KBG in person only after I had written a bit more about Star of Mysore, and he was so affable, so approachable, so amiable, as he was with everyone. He had a sparkle of twinkle in his eyes and was ever smiling, even in disagreement. A widely respected journalist, everyone rejoiced when University of Mysore awarded him honorary doctorate. In the spirit of true journalism, KBG published articles in Star of Mysore, even if he didn't agree with its contents. But he also never failed to add the editor's acerbic comments if he disagreed. KBG possessed the very rare courage and grace to accept that he may have been wrong. In fact, this lovable aspect of the man added to the great respect that the public already had for him. With this towering journalistic stature and his English and Kannada newspapers, KBG wielded enormous influence on public opinion, especially in Mysore. KBG was a philanthropist and gave generously when he was convinced about the cause. KBG was a friend to many, an iconic figure, a role model for many. He was one of the public institutions of Mysore and made his mark across our state of Karnataka. KBG's passing on is obviously a grievous loss to his family, but also to his many friends and admirers. The continuous stream of people who went to pay their last respects to his mortal remains is proof of the love and respect that he commanded among the public. Today, as we hold this memorial meeting of this great personality, let us celebrate who KBG was and what he did and achieved and the legacy that he has left for Mysore. It's a proud legacy which we all, and especially Mr. Vikram Muttanna, will carry forward, always keeping KBG in our hearts and minds. At a personal level, I treasure my friendship and my association with KBG, an exemplar in many ways. Thank you. Now, I request his very dear friend, Mr. Ashwini Ranjan, to speak about KBG.
Thank you, Billy. On the 12th of this month, we had a small get-together to celebrate my 80th birthday. And, I had invited KBG to the party, and he confirmed it on WhatsApp even on the previous day and said, of course I am coming. And as the evening went by, this man was absent. And a few friends said, hey, where's KBG? I said, I don't know. And little did I know that here is a man whose end was coming in a few hours. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, when my friend Ayana called me and said, KBG is no more, it was a shock. Of course, we all, his good friends, we all went to his residence. And there he was, lying in his funeral box, dignified, dressed immaculately, and with his, the traditional headgear, his traditional kupia which they wear for their weddings. He looked immaculate, and I felt this is how a person should look. I am used to seeing in other communities, including mine, how disfigured bodies look, the face looked puffed up and things like that. But there he was, lying in state and soon to leave all of us. This morning I was, in fact, I was thinking about him. I said, what is it that he has done for us? He has done for me. Because my friendship goes back to 1976. I said, what would I be in this city had it not been for him? I think we were all, before the start of Mysore, honestly, the 3 or 4 lakhs of residents of Mysore, we were all islands. Nobody knew me beyond my street. It was this man who linked us, who gave us a connect with others, and which I think we all need to recognize and value. How do you describe a man like KBG? I am reminded of the proverbial 5 blind men describing an elephant. Each one of us had our own relation, connect with him. And in my case, it was very unusual and perhaps very unique. 1976, I had become a jeweler by accident. I had lost my father, and overnight I had to come and take care of his establishment. So I was a bored businessman, and of course I was also a Rotarian at that time. Then his brother Subbaiah was my good friend, a very mild, soft-spoken gentleman, and we both sat together during the Rotary meetings. And then he said, my brother is in town. I said, I'd love to meet him. And the day I met him, I asked myself, is this man, both these people born to the same parents? He was so different, absolutely different, and he was a true journalist. He was provoking, teasing, all the time trying to get something out of you. He was a born journalist, full of stories and absolutely no double standards. He lived the way he talked. He did what he was writing, doing, everything. There was nothing, two things about him. He was one person, and which I liked immensely. And to a bold businessman, he came with a flourish of stories which were laced with sex, romance, deep, black humor. It was something. It was a relief for me, given my boredom in sitting in a shop throughout the day. And I started meeting him more than I met Subbiah. And there were many evenings we spent in the course of those years. Now, what I found in him was he was a maverick in business. You know, I being a businessman, I understand how difficult it is to start a business. And to him, coming from Pune and Bombay, new to this city, for him to take a decision to start a newspaper was not easy. And after all, he was not, all that wealthy where he could take risks. Probably the man who took the greatest risk was his partner, Mr. Chinnappa. It was his press that KBG was using, and it was his money also which KBG was using. And probably he was more tense those days than KBG himself. However, the first print of Star of Mysore had only 200 copies, which he distributed free of cost throughout the city. Now he was the editor, he was the printer, he was the distributor, he was everything. And he had an old motorbike, Java motorbike, which he had borrowed from KV Subbiah, his brother, and he was going around. And I still remember on one occasion he did not start and I had to push it myself. Now that is the closeness I had with him. And that liberal dose of sex, romance, I don't know if those of you remember those early days, the abracadabra and dabra. It had things like, food for sex, necking is fun, do it now, sex on sex and bed manners, all Nehru's women, this lit the fire in this city. And the proof of the pudding was, the end of the year, from 200 copies, it had shot up to 2,000 copies per day, which was a remarkable meteoric rise. And he began to sense the power of his newspaper. He was to begin with, he was under the mercy of local politicians and all that. By end of the year, believe me, politicians were coming after him, seeking his support, his cooperation. Now, I still remember him. If you have read that 2018 copy of Star of Mysore, he had released a small booklet.
Story of Star of Mysore.
Story of Star of Mysore.
40th anniversary.
That's right. There he quotes an incident. There was this, early days, there was this manager of a bank who had assured him that he will give him 20,000 rupees as working capital, and which was not given to him. And the clerk had told KBG and Chinnappa, who was accompanying him, that take care of him, meaning that you pay him something. Now this man, KBG, it went against his brain, and he stood against corruption all his life. he took it on and went to the extent of making sure that this fellow was dismissed from service. That was the power that he realized very soon in his career. Man was absolutely street smart, and I have taken full advantage of his smartness. Now, there was once a hoarding, I don't know if there is anybody in this hall who remembers that. 1984, our late Sri Jayachamrajendra had passed, and in 74 he had passed, and in 78 I had put a hoarding. I was running a business, a textile business called Janakya, and I had put a hoarding on the corner of KR Circle. And it was a large hoarding which had only 3 words: "We miss you," and there was a photograph of the Maharaja. It somehow became a talking point in the town. It caught a lot of attention. I never believed that it would get such a response. And even late Shri Vattam, the senior journalist of Deccan Herald, came and interviewed me, and I said, wow, what have I done? I just put 3 words there. And it became national news. Hindu carried it, Indian Express carried it, and I felt elated. 2 days later, about 50 or 60 Kannada protagonists came to my shop and said, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ನೀವು, ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋದರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ಹರಿತೀವಿ, ಡಿಸ್ಫಿಗರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So I was a little upset. Then I went to the go-to man, KBG, and said, what do I do? He laughed and said, I think there is a solution. I said, what is that? He said, ask them to translate "we miss you" into Kannada in 3 words. Those guys didn't come back. But giving you an example of his smartness, and his interest in me was not because of anything, but he discovered that I was using valor more than discretion, and I was creating problems for myself, not quite often. One such incident I must tell you, that during my Rotary days, Farooq Irani and I had a problem. I had proposed one dear friend of mine called Mr. Nanaya. Nanaya was supposed to be installed by Sri Farooq Irani. Farooq Irani was an iconic figure, like KBG is today. He was in Mysore. Farooq Irani was a great man. He was the founder of Ideal Java, if you recall, and sorry.
Yes, the distilleries.
Including distilleries, and yes, we all used his product, and of course, I also rode Java motorcycle myself. So this man, at probably the half of the club, were either employed by him or indebted to him. So when this induction was taking place, he made some jokes about Nanaya and the Rotary. And so this Nanaya, a shy, short, small, soft-spoken fellow, he was red in his face, and that was the last time I saw him in the Rotary Club. He never became a Rotary member. Subsequent meeting, which is called a closed-door meeting, if Rotarians will know about it, I stood up and said, Farooq Irani has committed a mistake. He said, as per the manual of Rotary, a new member should be made welcome, he should be treated well, and he should feel comfortable. And what Farooq Irani has done goes against the tenets of Rotary. Half the club rose on their feet and says, how dare you say something about Farooq Irani like this? And it was so overwhelming The only person who was supporting me was KB Subbiah, was sitting next to me. He said, Ashwini, not to worry, you stand by your whatever you have said. And the next day I tendered my resignation. Now that was the end of it. Now our friend Ganapathy made a hue and cry about it, wrote a lengthy article there, abracadabra was used for it, and I felt a little, I thought it was a saving grace for me, and in fact I thought I was under the impression that I had committed a grave crime. 6 months later, there was this gentleman called Mr. Kaiser. He was the commissioner of Mysore, my neighbor. He called me, of course he was my father's friend and he took liberties with me. He picked up in his Urdu, said, "Oh," that's all he said. "Sham ko aao, 6 baje aa jao idhar." So I said, "Yes sir." I called him uncle. "Yes uncle, I am coming." I went to his house and whom do I find? Farooq Irani. So Farooq said, "I am sorry for that evening. I should not have done that. I should have apologized then and there, but my supporters did not permit me and I was carried away." I said, "Forget about it, Farooq. It happens. You're a big man. I'm a small fry, and let's forget." "No, please accept my apology." And that was the greatness of Farooq. And KBG had a beautiful story, and he published even that, and that is how Mysore came to know about this little ruckus. Many years later, 2021, it was once again reproduced in Star of Mysore, Abracadabra, and he narrated the whole story. Mr. Ryan Irani, Sheila Irani, for many years they had mistaken me. But once this was released, there was peace again and our friendship again was restored, which I thought was very kind of, keep calling him Gandhi because that's how I addressed KBG, and he came to my rescue. The other incident, so I am so indebted to this man, I can go on narrating a number of incidents. One such incident was during the Kaveri dispute. We were sharing waters with Tamil Nadu, and on some platform, I said, "What is wrong in sharing water? My sister lives in Tamil Nadu. Why should she not have Kaveri water? What is wrong? Water belongs to mankind and not to any particular people." Now, this was twisted out of context, and he said, "The founder of Pratham, Mysore, is against Kannadigas, and he is for Tamil Nadu because he wants to give water to Tamil Nadu." You can imagine the consequence. Next day, we had about 100 or 150 Kannada Chadivadi. They all ransacked my office, broke the window pane, and that day I was in Bangalore, my wife was in the factory. We were given police protection, and thanks to KBG who came to my rescue and killed that news, which was kind of catching on. Day by day there was more news coming out of it. But KBG came to my rescue and he killed that news item, and in 2-3 days calm restored. And interestingly, that case, which happened I think 2006 or 7, the case is still going on in the court. 6 people were arrested and left on bail. 5 are dead. The 6th one is in the hospital, very soon to depart. This is how the judicial system. Now, the other reason why I am so indebted to KBG is that when Shashi, my wife, and we started Pratham Mysore, it was not easy. We were going through innumerable challenges, financial challenges, political challenges. But KVG in his news abracadabra and also the publications, various other publications, he repeatedly published various articles to support our cause, the genuineness and sincerity with which we were working in the Muslim communities. That was a great support that came to us, and yes, he helped us raise funds. We were, I had started this and we didn't know where to find funds, and it was expensive to run schools. And at one point in time we had 200 Balawadis, meaning each home was a school, and we had 200 of them in various slums of Mysore. And KVG came to my rescue, and especially when Wahida Rahman came to Mysore to deliver one message to the slum dwellers. We wanted each home had about 8 to 10 children, and we needed one school for every 2 homes, because the Balawadi consisted of 20 children, and we needed one school for every 20 children there. And the message that this lady had to come all the way and deliver was, please control your population, which we could not have said it, but she was brought because she was our brand ambassador, and she came and delivered that message, and it was quite an expensive thing. Of course, whether people controlled their population after that, I don't know, but this is how it went on. And to many of us, we recall that his support for our NOTA, none of the above. He participated actively, and to me personally, he inaugurated my exhibition. He wrote a foreword to my coffee table book and created an identity for me. Published my articles. He encouraged me to write, teased me, provoked me. And one incident I forget to mention here is during 1978, if you recall, Devarajas had come back to power for the second time. He became the chief minister, and Devarajas and my father were childhood friends. So whenever he travelled from Mysuru, Talhadi, stopped at our home, used to have a meal and then go to Bangalore. Now here, KBT has noticed it. So he came and said, what is happening? So he had 3 beautiful daughters. So he thought, kya chakkar chal raha hai bhai? So I said, no chakkar. And 1976, it was the 3 daughters who found Shashi for me, and we got married. So I said, I'm satisfied. So I can go on and on with so many little instances, but I am personally indebted to KVG. I miss a good friend, truly a good friend. And then I was so happy that when I saw the newspaper on the 13th, where there was a Shraddhanjali, and also on yesterday, Saturday, when Star of Mysore appeared with Vikram's article, I said, this is what is professionalism all about. In spite of all the grief, the Star of Mysore had systems in place to ensure continuity, and it reminded me of the phrase, the show should go on. With these few words, thank you very much, Belly, and for the opportunity, and this is my relationship with my dear friend KVG. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. I request Shri Babu Satyanarayana to kindly come and no, you should speak, sir. You knew him so well. Would you like a microphone there itself, or would you? Yeah. Sir,
I'm going. I was worried. You may finish it also.
ಕೈ ಕೊಡಿ ಬೆಳ್ಳಿಯಪ್ಪ ಸರ್.
So much. Okay.
In fact, in the evening, when the delivery boy doesn't give it around 5 o'clock, I become fidget. I'm so much accustomed to this one. It is like a daily food for me. And I am grateful to KBG for the simple reason he has published a lot of my letters. Fantastic. And it was to such an extent, whenever I meet some people and introduce myself, oh, star of Mysore. So that is how he popularized me. So I have had a very good connection with him. I used, in the WhatsApp, I used to send him some of the interesting details I came across. And in fact, even before he died, I had written a message to him. He acknowledged it. And it was shocked to me to see that on 30th is no more. And as I mentioned about it, it is something great about it. Him, in the sense, he has done a yeoman service to Mysore. In all the infrastructure development, he has done it something. And his writing in the Star of Mysore has pushed the authorities to take effect. To that extent, he has done quite a lot of things to Mysore. When he died, my sister wrote a beautiful poem in Kannada. I don't have that with me. But I also wrote a poem and then I sent it to Star Mysore and then I published it in the WhatsApp. I hope I can get that one in here and make a small this is it. I you, dear KBG. KBG was no ordinary journalist. His Star of Mysore shone brilliantly with his indelible footprint from its fledgling baby steps. It marched with firm steps to become a daily eveninger that captured the imagination of citizens of Mysore. A daily delight with news and views, a window opening wide and to know where and what is happening. It had everything to cater to everyone's taste. In his inimitable style, spoke his mind through abracadabra and hocus pocus to poke fun to politicians and their ways, to expose their peccadilloes and their corrupt ways and hypocrisy, to remind people are watching through his writing, put pressure to keep the government in check, and brought reform to Mysore. He was soft-spoken and gentle. You see, it's so captivating. This photograph is so captivating. It is his personality. Spoke and gentle, wore that beatific smile, always in his death we feel orphaned. But he always lives in our memory to assure that he is watching from high heaven, asking us to keep his legacy alive and kicking. This is what I wrote in the my letter to him and also to Star Mysore. And I was in constant touch with him in several ways. He was asking me, what have you written anything in your life and so on? I said, I have written a lot of political articles. I have compiled political articles, about 47, detail about 3,000 words. Mysureans don't know about it. It is published from Mumbai in a publication. It's a free journal, and it is. I have left off now writing, and I started doing it in sometime like 1961 and to this one. And he wanted to have a copy of it, and I sent it to him. And he said, have you written any other thing? I said, I made a translation of one book that is called Chaturvedi, who lived for 122 years. He has written in Kannada. I translated it, a few portions of it, very interesting, because he, in 1915, he was working with Mahatma Gandhi till his end. And he was very straight with Mahatma Gandhi. He would advise him not to do things, some of the things which unfortunately Gandhi continued to do. So, but they had a good relationship. So he has written a big book. I have translated some of those things for this, for my interest only. He wanted to have anything, so I sent it on to him. So, the relationship with KBG is something fantastic. And whenever I wrote anything about roads I have written probably quite a lot of things. He has published everything, probably about 100 articles I have written on that one. He has published this one, and he has been always considerate to give publicity to me, whatever I have written about it, and I feel very grateful, and I really feel when he died, it upset me very badly, because something, he is nobody else, he is not my relation, but the relationship I have is something inexplicable. He has done something marvelous in serving the people of Mysore, and as he has already given, a fantastic way he has mentioned about it, how he has come to their rescue whenever somebody is in trouble. He has done it, and there are so many things I could like to, I don't know, I am not able to express things properly. I don't have the gifted gab like most of the people. I am not a public speaker, but I feel sentiment about it, and in my own way I express these things. And I'd like to be excused. There are so many things I could tell about him, but I'm tongue-tied by the one, because his passing away has really shocked me more than once. It is something, you see, in life you come across some people whom you don't forget about it. The way they touch your life is inexplicable. And KBG was one who touched my life. And I was sorry I couldn't go and give a lost patient, when he was lying on that one, I only saw the photograph. But at my age, 93, I felt a little difficult to go. I also didn't know what was happening, what is going on, who is taking care of it. So I couldn't go, but at least this is an opportunity. I am able to share my feelings about KBJ, and we all feel about it. We miss it. We feel orphaned. And as rightly put it, a journal's trend, his son has continued in his trend, and I hope it will go on. It has gone on for about nearly 50 years it is going on, and they have brought it, it is not a local paper. What I feel it is not a local paper. It has transcended from that local paper to international level. And then I know quite a lot of people, Kannadigas living all over the world, they look forward to Star of Mysore to see every day, because without that, the day is not complete. I am happy I am given the opportunity to express myself, and I pay homage to the memory of KBJ. He lives in our memory. He is the Star of Mysore, lives in our memory. May God bless him. Make his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your very touching tribute. Now I request Dr. H.S. Shivanna to speak a few words.
Professor Belliappa and friends, I knew the late K.B. Ganapathy since perhaps the 1980s, because I was in a Rotary Club of Mysore West and his office was at the back. But I don't remember meeting him there, but I did meet him on other occasions. And when I really thanked him was in 1989. I was the Rotary District Governor, and we had invited Field Marshal Manik Shah, who had also retired by then, as the chief guest to inaugurate the district conference. And after that, I found that I was on center page. I was on the very first page, center stage as it were, with Field Marshal Manik Shah, because we were all lighting the lamp. And since I was the governor, I was with Field Marshal Manik Shah. So naturally, like any other human being, I would have felt very proud, which I did. And another time, I used to, I was a lecturer in the postgraduate department of English, and I used to produce plays. And I remember the first one, he was there, and he wrote about it also. And naturally, I was very pleased that somebody had covered my play, which was not done earlier, because in previous years we had nobody to report on these things. But more than being, and then right towards the end, just a few months ago, I happened to give a lecture to the Mysore Literary Association on space beyond us, the stars and the galaxies, etc. And I had invited him personally. I rang him up and said, "You must come." And he did. In fact, I had not even, told him to come with his wife. But he said his wife can't come, but he wanted every thing to be recorded. She wanted everything to be recorded and told to her. Anyway, he came, and I did say a few things which people may not have liked, because I said it is man who has created God. And this is said by many. It's not that I was, but you know, in the present juncture, sometimes it can be even dangerous to say such things. But I did. And then went on to talk about it and prove my point. Of course, Albert Einstein himself had said something similar to this. And so I can always take refuge with what Albert Einstein himself said. But that apart, he also on the following day wrote an article publishing my photo as well, fairly large, to say what I have reported. Now I was keeping my fingers crossed because, you know, sometimes newspaper articles can also create controversies. And here I was sticking my neck out and saying a few things. Fortunately, he covered it extremely well. So I thanked him and said, he said, how did you find my write-up? I said, fine, just fine. Because, you know, it hadn't gone beyond a certain point. I had said something more there also. But anyway, things went off well. But let me now not just be personal, but be impersonal. Now, I was just thinking, what kind of a life has Mr. Ganapathy led? And you find he's filled up all the dots, as it were. He came from rather humble beginnings. He was born in a small town, and then went to Makara and all that Professor Belliappa has told us. And then what do we find? He comes to Mysore, first generation, and makes a remarkable mark on the city, because he becomes the voice of the city, I would say. Well, he was the star of Mysore, he was Mysore Mithra, and more than anything, for all of us, he was the voice of Mysore, because he was able to say a few things through his paper which were quite daring. I mean, he took on the Chief Minister himself, as you know, recently. And other than that, he wrote about all the faults that he could see. He was a fault finder too, but in a positive sense, to see that Mysore improved. And there were people who could notice all these glitches and also print them. And he had name, he had fame, he had a very closely knit family. He had great fortune because he did make a lot of money. He built himself a wonderful house, and he was very popular. And as I said, he fought for well-known issues. And even in his death, what do we find? That he has left everything so well. He has a whole staff to back and continue the good work, and his son himself, Vikram, is a trained journalist, because he's been to USA to study there, and he also writes in Star of Mysore. Now the whole picture is complete, as it were. And he was also generous through Star of Mysore, because whenever there was, for example, the Latur earthquake, and I remember the Rotarians were keen on doing something. And the first thing that he did was Latur, a fund for that from the Star of Mysore, and immediately rupees 10,000 or 50,000, whatever the amount there. He led by example. He also went to Latur and saw things for himself. So it was not just Mysore he cared for, but he cared for other places also, where something like this happened. And he was also, my friends tell me, that he was also generous in many other ways which he did not publicize. So here is the man who had everything, plus longevity. He lived till the age of 86, a good age to go, I would say, when all your mental faculties are intact. And he died, as the English phrase goes, with his boots on. Till the last dying day, he was in charge of Star of Mysore. And the very next day he passed away, and till now it is coming every day. Now he makes for a wonderful role model. But I have noticed these role models, I know, they are difficult to emulate. Because what goes behind all this is a lot of sincere, hard, intelligent, regular work. And that he was able to put in. And I think ultimately he was a successful man because he was a totally self-made man also. That increases the success that he is met with. He was not born great. He achieved greatness. And there lies the beauty of his life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. I request Professor Archandra Prakash.
With your permission, sir, ಇದು ನನ್ನ ತಂಗಿ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಓದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕಾವೇರಿ ಕನ್ನಡದ ಕೊಡಗಿನ ಸುಪುತ್ತನೆ ನನ್ನದೊಂದು ಹನಿಮಿರಳಿ ಅರ್ಪಿಸಿವೆ ದುಃಖದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುದ್ದಿ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠ ಪತ್ರಕರ್ತನೆ ನಿಂದು ಕತ್ತಿಗಿಂತಲೂ ಮಿಗುಲು ಲೇಖನ ಅಲಗು ಎಂಬ ತತ್ವದ ಕೀರ್ತಿ ಪತಾಕೆಯ ಗಗನದೆತ್ತರದ ಏರಿಸಿದೆ ನಿರ್ಭಯದಿ ಜನಮನದ ನೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮೈಸೂರು ತಾರೆ ಮಿತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ದಿವ್ಯ ದಿನವು ಚೈತ್ರದೋದ್ಭುಜಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೊಸ ಹೊರತು ಹೂವುಗಳ ಸುದ್ದಿಯಾಭರಣ ತುಂಬಿ ಜನಮನ ಬೆಳಗಿಸಿದೆ ನೀನು ದಿಟ್ಟನೂ ನೀನು ಸನ್ಮಿತ್ರನೂ ನೀನು ಬಾಳ ದಾರಿಯ ಪಯಣ ಮುಗಿದು ಮುನ್ನವೇ ಹೀಗೆ ಅದೆಂದು ನೀನು ಹೊಳೆವ ದುವಧಾರೆ.
Thank you, Professor Belliappa, for giving this opportunity. Friends, let me start from the beginning. Beginning in the sense, latest. On 10th of July, I got a call from Ganapathy. He said, Prakash, ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಇವಾಗ? I said, but what? ಅದೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಲೆಟರ್ ಬಂತು ನೋಡಿದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಈಗ 19ಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಇನಾಗ್ರೇಷನು embodiment ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡು ಟರ್ಮಿನಸ್. ಟೆಲ್ ಮಿ ವಾಟ್ ಟು ಡೂ. ವಾಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಐ ಕುಡ್ ಡೂ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡನ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಯು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಪಿ ಎಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ವೈ ಶುಡ್ ವಿ ಗೋ ಟು ಪಿ ಎಲ್? ಅಸ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ಇಲ್ಲ, ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಮೈಂಡ್. ಸಿ ಎಟ್ ಮೈ ಏಜ್ ಐ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಡೂ ಮಚ್, ಬಟ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಮೈ ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಷನ್ or 1 lakh rupees. Why did you take it up? I had written about this bus terminal earlier, 4 or 5 articles I had written in Star of Mysore, because I was also involved in transport work, research earlier, and I was involved in the location of that particular bus terminal in 1976 or so, when Salagar was the Mysore KSRTC officer here. I knew the whole background. On the basis of that, I could make out that this selection that they have made is very tragic for the Mysore, going to be tragic for the Mysore. That I had written an article, and Gandhi had been kind enough to publish it in Syria. So when he called me on 10th, this was the dialogue continuing from the back 4 or 5 articles I had written. I told him, Mr. Ganapathy, I can't do that because my age is also not much different from yours. I can't take up this responsibility. Then we discussed certain names. ಆಯಿತು ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. It seems Meera told me later, he did contact those people. That is the commitment he had for the problems of Mysore. Well, that was on 10th. On 12th, when we met at Ashwini's meeting, I did feel that a very important man, as far as Ashwini is concerned, missing. I was surprised. I think I did make a mention, really, Ganapathy. But next day in the morning, I got a call from our common friend, Dr. Javed, at 7 o'clock. And he said, Prakash, you know what happened? I said, no, this is news. It's shocking. It's shocking for simple reason that our relationship, unlike of some of my friends here, was a very cautious relationship between us. Caution is also by nature, my nature, also because of some of my long observation of Ganapathy. I was Mysurean by birth, so I have a proper knowledge of Mysore, so I know certain situations in Mysore. I was also a patient for Dr. Subbaya, and he was living in Wesley Road, and I was visiting Wesley Road for other reasons. After some time, I could see Ganapathy moving around on his black Java. That's how I started observing Ganapathy. He used to visit his parents who were living upstairs behind the house of K. Ganapathy. That's how gradual observation and interaction continued. And over a period, certain common friends were also his friends. I know how the friendship in sports club and all that went up, elections and this and that. So I was observant and knowledgeable about nature of Ganapathy. And I knew he was a highly multi-dimensional personality. He had so many fibers of relationship characters, each individual separate but linked to his ultimate intellect. He could be a type of person like Ashwini could be for him. He could be a type of person like I am to myself. He could adjust to the person like others were. He could make a wonderful relationship. But me and Ganapathy had common thing. We had sting in the tail. And I was conscious of his sting and my sting. I never wanted that we should sting each other. So constantly I was observing that we met several times, but not as closely as Ashwini could have or Belliappa could have, but just an academic relationship. He always tried to entice me, talk to me and all that, but I maintained that cautious relationship because of my experience with others. But he was so committed about certain things. I'll give another example of my relationship with him and his commitment to the job. I was involved in a camp run by World Youth Service in 1963. And that is Beltur in Maddur Taluka Mandal district. And again I went there in 64 for S.R. Krishna's period. Nijligappa, S.R. Gandhi and all these were the personalities, Hegde, they were all the personalities who visited there. So I was continuing to have the relationship even after 64. I was going quite often there and tried to continue the development process. In a common meeting, we discussed this. And Ganapathy got interested. Houda, ishtu varsha admere ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ಹೋಗೋಣ ಒಂದ್ಸಲಿ. And we fixed a date, we went. He moved around, talked to people, learned about the whole process. He brought out an article on that with photograph. He enjoyed that visit. He went his own car, he had that, and we went along with him and we had a wonderful talk with him. That was the only closest relationship of few hours I had with him. All others were academic relationship only. Or meetings here and there, we shared dayas and all that. But what I learned was, he was really a person with multi-dimensional. As some of my friends said, he has woven a tapestry of Mysore. Because Mysureans, as Ashwini said, we were living in a small village and in the isolated places. But it is he who brought us together by a common thread. And he knit a wonderful tapestry of Mysore for all of us. And he tried to create the verb of what is Mysore. and tried to make us feel we should be proud of Mysore. As some of you said, he was a fighter to the core. He could be a very humorous man, at the same time, his courage no one could take challenge to. Very courageous, he could go to any extent because he had legal experience. He used to tell me, Prakash, do you know how many days I have gone to Bangalore and sat there in the court? And he used to use his own style of expression what he used to face there. Because people filed cases against him for any day writing and every writing. He said, I found a way out of it. I did not want to remain an official editor. So that kind of, but still he fought. Therefore, friends, we really miss a great personality today. Maybe I was not as good and fortunate as Ashwini could be to be very close to him, but I really respected him and he respected me. Ours was a purely academic relationship, but with tremendous mutual respect and admiration. Today, I pay my homage to my good friend. And really, Mysore cannot forget him. He has changed what Mysore is as compared to what Mysore was. And I'm happy. We do know Muttana again academically, not personally, because when my wife went to America, my son and Muttana were knowing to each other. They were living in the same place. So my wife had seen him then, and since then, and he was in same school earlier, he was senior to my son. So we know each other in that sense, and I'm sure Muttana will continue his work. And as Ashwini has pointed out yesterday's write-up, Muttana has really taken up correctly. Few lines that he has said in the beginning is the typical example of our Ganapathy. He has made a mention and left it at that, and has been very honest about his approach. And I am looking forward to read about him from his own son. Thank you very much.
I request Professor Nagana.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರಾದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಬೆಳ್ಳಿಪ್ಪನವರೇ, ನಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬ ಗುರುಗಳು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶಿವಣ್ಣವರೇ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿರಿಯರೇ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ಇದೊಂದು ಪದ್ಯ. ಇದು ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಎಲ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಈ ಪದ್ಯ. ಇದನ್ನು ಬರೆದಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. HR ಲೀಲಾವತಿ ಅವ್ರ ಪದ್ಯಕ್ಕೂ ಇದಕ್ಕೂ ಭಾಳ ಸಿಮಿಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅದು ಓದಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ತಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದೇನು ಅಂದರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಅಥ್ಲೆಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಸೂರಿನವರು ಶ್ರದ್ಧಾಂಜಲಿ ಅರ್ಪಿಸಿದ್ರು ಮೈಸೂರು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಓವಲ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಶ್ರದ್ಧಾಂಜಲಿಯನ್ನು ಅರ್ಪಿಸಿದೆ. ಸಂಜೆ ನಾವು ಭಾರತೀಯ ವಿದ್ಯಾಭವನದಲ್ಲಿ RK ಪದ್ಮನಾಭ ಅವರ ಸಂಗೀತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಅದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿ ಮೆಮೋರಿಯಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಸರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಪರಿವರ್ತನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡಿದೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಮಾತು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದಂದರೆ, ಇದಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಾಗೆ ಒಂದಿನ KB ಜಿಯವರು ಒಂದು 2.5 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ AV ನರಸಿಂಹಮೂರ್ತಿಗಳು ಭಾರತೀಯ ವಿದ್ಯಾಭವನದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಾಗಿ ಮುಂದುವರಿಯೋಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವರ ವಯಸ್ಸಿನ ಕಾರಣದಿಂದ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷ ನಾನು ವೈಸ್ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ, ಈಗ ನಾನು ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ವೈಸ್ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಜಾಗ ಖಾಲಿ ಇದೆ, ಆ ಜಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ನೇಮಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾನು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. 1-2 ದಿನ ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯ ತಿಳಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರು. ನನಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಏನು ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಭಾರತೀಯ ವಿದ್ಯಾಭವನ ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ, ತುಂಬ ಚರಿತ್ರೆ ಉಳ್ಳಂಥ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇದಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಾಗೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ನಾನು ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷನಾಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಪ್ರಾಂಪ್ಟಾಗಿ 2 ದಿನ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಏನು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರಿ ಅಂತ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನೋಡಿ ತುಂಬ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಏನಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೊಂದು ಸಾರಿ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೋಂಡ ಟೀ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದನ್ನು ನೀವು ರುಚಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು, ಮತ್ತು ಇನ್ನೇನು ಅಂಥ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಇರ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ. ಅದ್ರ ಏನು ಕೆರಿಯರ್ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಅವರೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ನಾನು ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಈಗ, ಇದಕ್ಕಿದಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಯಾವುದೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಐ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಗಾನ್. ಆವಾಗ ನೀವು ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಹೊರತು ಬೇರೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅದು ಇಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ನಿಜ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಭಾವಿಸಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಒಂದು ಮೀಟಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ, ಮಂತ್ಲಿ ಮೀಟಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ, ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟಿವ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದವರು, ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ವೈಸ್ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಒಂದಿನ ಹೀಗೆ ನಾನು ಮತ್ತು ರ್ಯಾಲಿಯವರು, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ರೇಡಿಯೋ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮದೊಂದು ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಭಾಷಣ ಬಂತು. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವತ್ತು ನಾವಿಬ್ಬರು ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ವೈಸ್ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇವರು ಲಾಯಕ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವಿಬ್ಬರು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಆ ಕಾರಣದಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ವೈಸ್ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರು. ಹೀಗೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಈಗ ಈ ಶ್ರದ್ಧಾಂಜಲಿ ಸಭೆ ಚರ್ವಣ ಆಗುತ್ತೇನೋ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಭಾವಿಸಿದ್ದೆ, ಹಾಗಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಶ್ವಿನಿ ರಂಜನ್ ಅವರ ಭಾಷಣ ಕೇಳಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಏನಾದರೂ ಒಂದು ವಿಶೇಷ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ನಿರ್ಗಮಿಸಿದಾಗ ಅನ್ನೋ ಸತ್ಯ ಪ್ರಕಾಶವಾಯಿತು. ಅಶ್ವಿನಿ ರಂಜನ್ ಅವರು ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೊಸ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ, ಆ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಶಿವಣ್ಣ ಅವರು ಎಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ರೀತಿ ಬಹಳ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾಯಿತು. ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ನ ಕೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು, ಗ್ರೇಟ್, ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ born great, but greatness was thrust upon him.
No,
Achieved, some achieved. No, I'm sorry, that is the last thing. Greatness thrust upon ಅನ್ನೋದು ಅದು ಕೊನೆಯದು, ಇದು ಮಧ್ಯದ್ದು. ಗ್ರೇಟ್ನೆಸ್, ಸಮ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಅಚೀವ್ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ನೆಸ್. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಗಣಪತಿಯವರು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಪು ಸತ್ಯನಾರಾಯಣ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದಂಥ ಮಾತು. ಅವ್ರ ತಂಗಿನೂ ತಂದರು. ಅವರು ಎಡೆಬಿಡದೆ ಆ ಸೋದರ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹತ್ತಿರದಿಂದ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅವರು ಆ ತಂಗಿನ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಬಿಡೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ 88 ವರ್ಷ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ 90, ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ 93. ಮೈಸೂರು ಆಕಾಶವಾಣಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಅಧ್ವರಿಗಳು, ಪಯಣಿಯರು, HR ಲೀಲಾವತಿ ಅವರು ಇಡೀ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆರೆದವರು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಈ ಸುದೀರ್ಘವಾದ ಈ ಸೋದರ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಚೆರಿಷ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅದರಿಂದ ಇವತ್ತು ಬಹಳ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದರ್ಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಗಣಪತಿಯವ್ರನ್ನ ನೆನೆದು ಸುಖ ಪಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಇಷ್ಟು ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಪದ್ಯ, ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಎಲ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಎ ಲಾಫಿಂಗ್ ಫಿಲಾಸಫರ್, ವಿ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟು ದಿ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ಲೆಸ್ ಲೆವೆಲರ್. This elder left quietly to test whether we could fend for ourselves. He was a friend to the young and old alike. A like of him is hard to find. There were moments when his angry grimace threatened to settle on that benign visage, but the laughing philosopher quelled it quickly, planting there the unswerving smile. He put the victim at his ease and warned wordlessly to correct their ways. He dared the high and the mighty when they went against the grain of law, never lowered the sword till the goddess of justice manifested herself in full glory. Drawn from a martial race, he had that grace to face opposition fair and square. Come what may was his stance, never left anything to chance. He was a nationalist through and through. Nation first was his mantra, and means no words to call them traitors, whose loyalty was extraterritorial. He had his values firm and strong, rarely followed the path that was wrong. His karmabhumi was Mysore. He drew our attention to many an eyesore. Wanted the city to be clean and neat. He maintained a strict vigil and beat to meet all the standards and protocols. He knew the worth of our intangible heritage, reiterated its value time and again. We did gain so much during his watch. Work shirkers and malingerers quaked at his sight, for he never hesitated to pick up a fight. Cause was what he held on to, because that was the mooring of his belief. He gave relief to so many, employed so many. He tended so many families. His words were homilies. What a man! What a man! Tributes are flowing like tributaries to sculpt his form, to sketch his person, and to record the debt of gratitude. He did try hard to change our attitude. He will linger long in our memory for the good works he has done and for many battles he has won. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
I request Krishna Prasad to speak.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Clearly there's very little left to be said after so much has been said of Mr. Ganapathy. But the only thing I thought we have not heard so far is the view of a journalist. We've heard from a couple of professors, we've heard from others who have seen him from outside. But I thought it's important to have a small view of Mr. Ganapathy from the inside of journalism. And so I have just a few random thoughts. They are not all linked, but I go back a long way with Mr. Ganapathy. I always called him Mr. Ganapathy, even up to his last week. I knew Mr. Ganapathy from about 1984-85, when I was a 10th standard student. When I first wrote to him in Star of Mysore, I was just about 7 or 8 years old. Television had started in India, in color television actually, in 1982, but we had a television for some time. And although everyone has mentioned Star of Mysore and Mysore Mithra, the group also had a weekly magazine for a small period of time. It was called Mysore Monitor. So I wrote a letter to Mr. Ganapathy when I was in school, 10th standard, and I said, would you mind if I wrote a TV review for your paper? And he said, he sent me a letter which I have, but I couldn't bring it here. He wrote me a hand typewritten letter, which is, as you can expect from Mr. Ganapathy, kind of profusive. It's full of words and not short of words, I must say. And so he wrote me a letter. I went and met him, and I started doing TV reviews for Mysore Monitor, and then later on, I had a much longer association with Star of Mysore. I never worked for Star of Mysore, but I had the grand privilege of writing the editorials for Star of Mysore for about 8 years without anybody knowing that I was writing those editorials. I was then in Bombay, I was then in Delhi, but I used to write those editorials from wherever I was. And it's funny that I should say this, because I was then working for the Times of India, I was then editing Outlook magazine, I was doing a number of other things outside of Mysore, but I happened to write the editorials without anybody knowing. And some of you might think that's a step down in life, but it was actually no problem at all for me, because the person who used to write the editorials before me was a man called Mr. R. Mohan, who used to be the Wall Street Journal's correspondent in Tehran. So I was basically following in the footsteps of a man who worked for the Wall Street Journal, so I had no problem at all. So that's my small little connection with Mr. Ganapathy. It went on for many, many years. I was not the editorial writer who caused the newspaper to shut down for a while, so I must clarify that, but I did do those editorials. At all these gatherings in memory of people, we just generally tend to do what is called hagiography. We just tend to think the world of everybody. One of the 7 sages of Greece was a man called Shillong. He was of this kingdom called Sparta. And there's a very famous line of Sparta. It says, "Di morci nil nisi bonum." Di morci nil nisi bonum. which basically means say nothing but good of the dead. Say nothing but good of the dead is what Shilon of Sparta said millennia ago. In journalism, one key wonderful lesson to remember about obituaries is the obituary of Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel was the man who created the dynamite factory, and newspapers in Sweden falsely reported that he was dead. And Alfred Nobel was aghast to see the obituaries which were written about him, that they call him the mass murderer, killer, and so on and so forth, for creating the dynamite which was killing people all around the world. It's at that point that Alfred Nobel chose to set up the Nobel Prize to improve upon his name. So there is one school of thought which believes that say nothing but good of the dead, but there is also the Khushwant Singh mode of life, of obituaries, where Khushwant Singh, and Mr. Ganapathy was a very big fan of Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh believed that you must say whatever you want to say of the dead, because they will not come back to different reasons. And so I am caught between these two stools. What kind of thing should I say? To me, I think we can easily split, in my mind as a journalist, we can split Mr. Ganapathy's life into two halves. One is the Java motorcycle phase of his life. Java, or later little Fiat, No. So one is the Java motorcycle phase and one is the Mercedes-Benz phase of his life. And to me, the Java motorcycle phase of his life is very interesting because that's when I first met him. And I've seen a few people here kind of suggest we should not clap after everybody speaks here. I can tell you, sir, having known Mr. Ganapathy, he would like us to celebrate and clap, because he believed life was a celebration. And in the Java phase of his life, he really observed that to the T. He was a fun-filled, wonderful man, full of jokes, full of humor, full of philosophy actually, on the rebound. And his columns were full of sex, romance, women. It was really interesting for me as a young boy to see him, talk about these things, write about these things. And so there is one of this phase of his. I think at that point of time, Star of Mysore was an open house. Really breeze blowing from all sides was what Star of Mysore was, and it reflected on the pages of the paper. Mr. Ganapathy, I don't know how many of you remember, used to sign his columns as Puck, P-U-C-K, which is of course a character from Shakespeare, but he also was punning on it. In his little book on Star of Mysore, he recounts talking to a woman who objects to something sexual which is in the newspaper and says, "Madam, but don't you see, I sign it as Puck." So he was that kind of man, fun, loving, rollicking, gay, abandon is the word he would use with it. And he brought a bit of the ethos of Bombay into Mysore when he came here. You will find that he picked up his craft of writing abracadabra from Behram Contractor, the man who was known as Busy Bee to the world. Behram Contractor actually started this kind of a column in the Evening News of India and later in a newspaper called Afternoon Dispatch. And that column was not as sexual, not as permissive, not as, not focused around women alone, but it was a kind of a well-rounded city kind of column. So that was the face of Mr. Ganapathy I really like, love, remember very much. That's also the face which brought the biggest story out of Star of Mysore. It was written by a man called Saket Rajan. Saket Rajan was the son of an army major called Major Soundarajan, and Saket went to JNU, went to Jawaharlal Nehru University, went to the Indian Institute of Mass Communications, was a topper at Indian Institute of Mass Communications, and later, of course, Saket became a key ideologue with the People's War Group. Saket was the man who dressed up as a worker and joined rare materials plant here outside of Mysore. And Saket Rajan was the man who broke the story of what's called the bomb factory, which Major General Madikeri now talks about. So I remember Star of Mysore from that kind of days when it was an open house, fun-filled, and so on and so forth. And I remember, and I hope I'm not breaking the house etiquette here. And Mr. Ganapathy is the kind of fun guy who had 2 young sons. He wouldn't mind pretending to squeeze their balls now and then openly, and he continued to do that even after Vikram came back from America. So he was a really fun-filled guy, a wonderful person. But I think in the second half of his life, which I call the Mercedes-Benz stage of his life, I think he became a little more dogmatic, a little less open, maybe slightly more joyless than previously, and perhaps a little too opinionated in some people's view. And I think, much of his information was now less first-hand and more second-hand and third-hand. The second point I want to make is that, and remind you of, is of a man called Bernard Levin. Bernard Levin was the legendary columnist for the Times London. And Bernard Levin, among all the other things he did, delivered one of the greatest quotes on journalism. He said, the health of a city can be judged by the quality of its water and the quality of its newspapers. The health of a city can be judged by the quality of its water and the quality of its newspapers. You all taste the water of Mysore, so you know its quality, but you also know the quality of Mysore looking at the newspapers around in Mysore. Somebody mentioned, I think Ashwini Ranjan, that there were about 30 newspapers. Actually, at the peak of Mysore's journalism life, there were 43 local newspapers. 43. All of which were single sheet, double sheet, most of them have vanished. In fact, there was a very famous publication called Aruna, which used to be on Chamraja Double Road. And tomorrow's paper would be printed the previous night, obviously. But it would be printed so much in advance that the shop next door would get tomorrow's paper before he shut his shop. So we had that kind of, Mysore. So you can see where Mr. Ganapathy has come in. He's created for us a common shared talking point in the city. At least among the English reading, English speaking people, he's created that shared talking point where we have something to discuss. Whether it's our roads, our trains, our electricity, whatever it is, I think he's created something for that. I always used to joke with him that 2 roads are safe in Mysore. His road and my road. And as you can see from Star of Mysore, the number of times the road in front of Chamundi Hill or the road from Chamundi Hill Road to his office is concerned, the number of times it gets mentioned. So his road, your road, and frankly, it's all up to all of us to use the newspaper to get our roads better. Even the recent agitation against the destruction of those trees, the uprooting of trees outside the mall, those are all wonderful things when you do look at Star of Mysore. We had a correspondent here for the Hindu called Bharat Kumar a long time back in 1986-87. He went to the United States to do a journalism course, and his master's dissertation was on Star of Mysore, on the finances of Star of Mysore. And he was quite amazed to see the kind of numbers that it was throwing out. So it's a profitable newspaper, a public newspaper of which we must be really proud of. There's one third point which I want to mention, which is that Star of Mysore, why we should be proud of it and why we should be proud of the role Mr. Ganapathy played in it is because of the fact that it is 48 years old today. The Times of India launched Evening News of India. Deccan Herald launched Evening Herald. The Calcutta Telegraph launched a newspaper called the Metropolitan in the evening. Midday was launched in Bombay. All of these newspapers have either died or have become very small. And to our credit, Star of Mysore is one of the few surviving successful English evening newspapers. I think it's a thing we must be really proud of, and our role in making that happen. If you look at the economics of Star of Mysore, I hear, and even Mr. Ganapathy would tell you that, each of us who read this newspaper is worth about 12,000 rupees. Each of us. Because if a vendor shifts from one vendor to another, he basically is picking up 12,000 rupees of business. So I think we should be a little proud of the fact that Mr. Ganapathy created this product which has lasted 48 years and hopefully will last 48 more. But when all the other big newspapers in the country have successfully failed in bringing out an evening newspaper, maybe that talks to the kind of city we are, the smallness of the city and so on, maybe the model that Star of Mysore adopted, but I think it's something to be proud of. My penultimate point is that Star of Mysore and KV Ganapathy kind of contest our view of journalism. Star of Mysore and Mr. Ganapathy contest our view of modern day journalism. We in today's India, we seem to think that journalists are those guys in Delhi and Bombay. We think it's those big channels and big newspapers. We think it's that guy who wrote a book or somebody who's got a big tweet or whatever it is. But Mr. Ganapathy showed to you that you don't need to be a small fish in a big pond. You can be a big fish in a small pond and make waves. And I think that's something to be very proud of. If you look at his books, actually the biography on Star of Mysore, all you see are names like sub-inspector, sub-inspector, corporator. You are not hearing about the Prime Minister or Home Minister or so on and so forth. So what that tells you is that whilst we may celebrate these guys bigger and higher in bigger cities, it's these small people who really matter. Mr. Ganapathy looks very big, but let's not forget that it's a small city, a small newspaper. But this matters more than all of those things. Times of India cannot get your drain cleaned. Hindustan Times cannot get your electricity restored. CNN IBN is not going to talk about some trees being uprooted. So I think the role that this paper plays in our lives every single day is in making this issue, taking these issues further and forward. I think Babu Satyanarayana said he feels fidgety if he doesn't get the evening newspaper. I lived for a very long time in Delhi. When I went home every day, I would be carrying the Times London with me, the New York Times with me, or the Financial Times with me. And my mother, who lived with me, only had one question: Star of Mysore. So I think that speaks to the kind of audience, the loyalty that Mr. Ganapathy built up. One penultimate point, and I think we must spend a lot more time on this than has been done. Behind both of Mysore's big newspapers has been a good woman. In the case of Andolana, it's Nirmala Koti who stood behind Rajshekhar Koti. And in the case of Mr. Ganapathy, and I cannot overstate this point at all, Mrs. Rajiv Ganapathy has played a huge role in what the newspaper has become and what Mr. Ganapathy has become. The kind of stability she's brought into his life, this kind of sobriety she's brought into his life, the kind of balancing factor she plays in his life, in a quiet, dignified, wonderful manner. And I have seen them in this house in Saraswatipuram, in that house in KC layout, and on the motorcycle here in the Benz there, but Rali Ganapathy has remained the same. We should remember Rali Ganapathy, but also we must remember two other people with Mr. Ganapathy here, and that's Mr. C.P. Chinnappa, who was his publisher, whom we call Boji, and the other man we should remember is a man called M.R. Shivanna, who was his trusted lieutenant for the longest time, M.R. Shivanna. These two people played a very big role in making Star of Mysore what it is, in making Mr. Ganapathy what he became. This last point I'll say is about C.L.R. James, the Trinidadian cricket writer C.L.R. James. He said something magnificent in a book called Beyond a Boundary in 1963. He said, what do they know of cricket who only cricket know? What do they know of cricket who only cricket know? This is a question all of us can ask about journalism, about medicine, about architecture, about music or anything. What do we know if we know only that? I think the success of people like Mr. Ganapathy tells you that journalism is beyond Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Calcutta or Madras. Journalism is beyond the celebrities. Journalism is beyond just the big issues concerning international affairs and finance and home and so on and so forth. It's a lot more things. This matters to us more than all of those things. Over a period of about 40 years, Mr. Ganapathy wrote about me quite a few times. I was honored, privileged to be featured in his columns about me. I too wrote about him a couple of times. And I called him in one particular piece, I called him India's best read editor. And I can tell you I have worked with a few of them and I've known many of them very closely. And I can tell you he surely was India's best read editor. Whether he was India's best read editor in his Java face or Mercedes-Benz face is up to you to imagine. But I can tell you that when Mr. Javed Naeem spoke here a year or so back, and Javed Naeem has a spectacular story of how he became a doctor, I, sitting there as always, asked Javed Naeem a question. And that was a touchy question. It's not the happy question that Javed Naeem was talking all the time. And when I went out, Ganapathy said, Huli Hindvutyala Krishna, Huli Hindvutyala. So what that tells you is, there is these two faces of Mr. Ganapathy. One was the Java face and once later the Mercedes-Benz face. I really didn't want to come here today because of various reasons, but also because I had a bit of a fight with Pratap Simha this morning. On Monday last, I tweeted to the Prime Minister's office and I tweeted to Narendra Modi with these words. I said KB Ganapathy devoted the last part of his life in spreading the mythology of Narendra Modi in Mysore and Kodagu, pumping up the BJP RSS. He was chairman of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And PMO India does not even issue a boilerplate condolence, I said. I tweeted to all of them, I sent it to the Member of Parliament from here. Imagine, Mr. Modi has since tweeted about Saroja Devi, he's since tweeted about Kota Sriram Rao, Srinivas, the actor. He's tweeted about some Nigerian president, but he's not been able to tweet about Mr. Ganapathy. And to me, I do not belong to that side of the political fence at all. I do not belong. So I felt really, I felt a bit of ingratitude there. And this morning, Pratap sent me a piece which has appeared in Mysore Mithra, which has a letter from the Prime Minister's office to Rajiv Ganapathy, condoling the death. My question to Pratap, and that provoked a furious response, is does the Prime Minister of India have a problem in acknowledging the death of a journalist? In acknowledging publicly. What is the problem? Especially a journalist who has helped the cause. And if you do not have a grace, gratitude in life, it's a problem. So I was worried about that, but I still thought I must come, and I've come here. My wife often says that Satre Vandigatevadu Savek Yavatu. Yakandre Stara Mysuru Bharatya Anta. And I think Mr. Ganapathy certainly lived up to that. And I have no problems in saying that he would have celebrated much of what I have to say here. We may question his politics in the latter phase of his life. We may question a lot of things as we want, privately, publicly, whatever. But I think we cannot question his commitment to journalism for 48 years, plus 5 years in Bombay. And the fact that this man named his house the Fourth Estate, his house in KC Layout is Fourth Estate, tells you of his commitment to journalism and his commitment to Mysore. And I hope that Mysore really celebrates him, thinks of him, remembers him, and uses his newspapers to get more out. Journalism is not just about WhatsApp forwards received in the morning mail. Journalism is a lot more, useful. It's about roads, electricity, water, drainage, a third-rate MLA, a fourth-rate MP. It's all about that. If we do not use these newspapers to do that, we have failed Mr. Ganapathy. And I hope we succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Krishna Prasad, for a very perceptive and insightful analysis of K.V. Ganapathy's personality. Now, I won't take much time, I'll just speak for 2 minutes because I think we have heard enough of encomiums and praise of K.V. Ganapathy. One point that I would like to make, which I made in Coffee Connections, is a journalist, as Krishna Prasad said, 48 plus 5, 53 years of journalism. He was a journalist of the old school. Most journalists have graduated to laptops, but Ganapathy no. Even today, he used to write his columns.
Dictate.
Huh?
He used to dictate.
Yeah, I know, dictate and write. But I've said it in the Patrakarta Bhavan the other day, like, he stuck to his position. And as Krishna Prasad said, now that is what you respect in a journalist. And most of you know, many of you know also, that Government of Karnataka did not give advertisements to Star of Mysore and Mysore Mithra, which is quite a huge loss. But he stuck to his guns and went on with it. The point is, Mysore will never be the same again without KV Ganapathy. And he is truly a remarkable human being and a very great journalist and a real star in the true sense of the term. Thank you all. Thank you very much for your patience and your sat through. I think it's been exactly 2 hours. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Anil Kumar.